Hey, what's going on YouTube? In today's video, we are going to take a look at an n8n automation that I had developed for my content creation. I think this is something that you're definitely going to be interested in. In this video, we're going to go ahead and walk through the entire automation, the various Lambda scripts through AWS, the transcription jobs, and a OpenAI chat assistant that I had created to do all this for me. So this is definitely something that you're going to want to pay attention to. I think AI is the way forward, as I have said, but you could also integrate with AI various tools such as n8n to perform various automations for you to make your life easier. So definitely check this video out. Maybe you won't use this one, but it'll give you an idea on how you could use it in your own workspace. So with that being said, let's get right into the video. Alright, so for those that are not familiar with n8n, I have done a few other videos and I'll kind of throw it up in the description and also maybe in a little tag in this video. Definitely go check those videos out. It is just a introduction to n8n and the various things that go with it. But with that being said, this video is strictly going to talk about that content assistant automation that I had just introduced in the beginning of this video. So these are going to be the various nodes that we're going to work with, and then we're going to integrate with AWS with the S3 bucket, the AWS Lambda function for serverless, and some transcription jobs, and then we're going to go head over to our OpenAI chat assistant. Alright, so for the very first node, we have our execute command here. So what this is, it's going to go ahead and it's ls the contents, so it's going to list out the contents of this directory here, and then we're going to go ahead and use grep to search for this pattern here. So we're looking for an MP4. So how this works is we are running n8n in a Docker container. So if we read out our Docker compose file, we can see how it kind of gets, the image gets spun up as a container. And we have two volumes here. This one is the one that I'm talking about right now. So within local files, which is hosted right in this local directory, we could place files into this, and then that will be shown up if we go into our Docker, we'll be able to get that file. So right now, if we list out the contents of this directory, we see local files here. And whatever we place in there will go into the Docker or into the container under files. And that will allow us to read that out. Just to show you here, so if we do a test step, we'll be able to see that here's the output here, and this is the MP4 file that we currently have in that directory. So the way that this is set up right now is obviously we only want one, so it's not perfect, this automation. So it's something that you might have to play with, or I'm going to adjust going forward. So you only want to do one at a time. So go ahead and place one MP4 into that folder, and then you can go ahead and execute it. The next one, we're going to go ahead and run the read write files from disk. And what that's going to do is going to go ahead and get this. So we're going to pass through this JSON right here. So for the file selector, and then down here at the file name, and that's going to obviously read out the Google Gemini 2.mp4. And what that does, it's going to go ahead and get that and be able to pass it through AWS S3 node, and that's going to allow us to upload it to our CyberMe video S3 bucket. If you have not done so already, obviously for those that are just getting it set up, you're going to go ahead and go into your AWS S3. You're going to grab that node, and then you're going to go ahead and set up your credentials. Once you get that set up, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to put in a bucket name. Then you're going to go ahead and you could literally just go into JSON here, and then you could grab whatever one you want. In this case, we want the file name, so you just go ahead and drag that over to file name. You want binary file enabled and data for input binary field. Just to take it a step back, because I kind of walked through really quick, the same thing is going to be applied here. So you're going to select this node here, and then under file selector, as I mentioned, you're going to go ahead and drag this over, and it's going to be within this directory here. Obviously, because right now it's just showing the output of that previous node is only giving us the file name, and in this case we need to go ahead and select the directory, and then down here we're going to do file name like I had mentioned. So how this is going to work is that it's going to execute command, it's going to read write from disk, it's going to go ahead and upload that file to S3. This will not continue on until this step has been completed. All right, so in the next step we have an edit fields node. And what this node is, it's going to go ahead and we're going to set a variable. And I'll explain why in a minute. And we had defined the name of this variable to be file name. And then we grabbed the input from the previous node the file name and place that here. Obviously, we do not want this to be a static file name because if you did a static variable or just a static name here or hard coded that file name, obviously anytime you put in a new file, you wouldn't be able to grab it. So this is a way to grab that every time you put in a new file name, it will be able to grab it dynamically. And the reason why we do that is for two reasons. So one, before we go down this path, we need it down in this merge node, and then we also need it down here when we go ahead and call out or perform an API call to download that S3 file, which we'll talk about in just a minute. All right, so after we set that variable, we're going to go ahead into the next node, this AWS Lambda function, and what this one is, and we'll walk through it in just a second. Again, you're going to set up your credentials. You're going to do an invoke operation. You're going to select. You can literally select which ones you need once you have your AWS credentials set up. And in this case, we're doing content assistant function. You're going to want to do wait for results, and then you're going to do the same thing as we just talked about, and you're going to do file name, and you're going to drag that over. This is dependent on when we go over to our Lambda functions, content assistant function. This is the script that we had came up with. Don't get too scared if you're not familiar with Python. You could go ahead and use ChatGPT. GPT actually generated most of this because for simple stuff like this, it's just easy to go to GPT and get it knocked out for you. So we're going to go ahead and import the Bodo 3 library, and that's the way to interact with AWS resources. And in this case, it just goes ahead and defines different things down here. So we have the S3 client. We have the bucket name. The biggest thing, though, that we needed to define is if we go down here, you're going to see the event.get, and that's a file name. So that's going to be this guy here. So we got to make sure that we have that matched up within the script. So if you were ever to change any of that, you need to make sure that is adjusted. And then the same thing here with the bucket name for CyberMe video. All right, so then the next node is going to be a merge node. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the input from both of these. The reason why we need this is because this function needed two variables and needed the file URI, and it also needed a job name. So this is what file that we needed. And then this is going to be the job name that we defined for it to save it as. This could be whatever you would like. But obviously, again, we don't want like a static name here. We don't want to adjust it every time. So in this case, we're just going to go ahead and set the job name to the file name. Now, with that being said, you could do a different function or a different method. You could do maybe like an execute command node before this, and define a variable, and then do a set field, and then assign that to like today's date or something like that. This way, it'll always be dynamically set for the file name. But in this case, we just grab the job name for the file name. So we'll go back into the merge so you can see how that's done. So we have combine, position, and then we have two. So there's going to be two inputs, and then we just go ahead and we line those up here. So input 1 and input 2, and then that passes it through here. After we execute it, I'll kind of show you a few of them again and show you how the output looks. So we just talked about this. I'll show you this function here in AWS, and all of this will be in the GitHub. I'm also putting it on our Patreon. Right now, that's not free, but all this will be free on my GitHub. Just playing around with Patreon at this time. So if you do plan on supporting this channel, we really do appreciate that. Right now, we just have a $5 membership, and you will get access to this information. But again, like I said, it is free at this time, and there's no additional benefit of subscribing. Really, at this point, it's just to show support for the channel. So this is the other function, Lambda function. And what this one is going to do, sorry, I didn't even explain the other one. What the other one does is it reaches out to that, as we said, that bucket name, CyberMe video, and then it looks for that file name that we had defined. And then if it finds it, it's going to go ahead and get us that, in this case, it's the object URI, which we're defining, and that's going to be the value that we need here. That needs to be passed through into the next function in order to interact with the AWS transcribe. So again, go ahead, go to GPT. You could ask it to pretty much generate most of this for you. In this case, it's going to use 2 libraries, Boda3 and time. It's going to define a transcribe underscore file function. It's going to pass through some parameters here. The only thing that you really would have to pay attention to would be maybe the MP4, depending on the extension that's being used. Output bucket name, obviously you would have to adjust this depending on what bucket you're going to push it into. Everything else is pretty straightforward. It's going to tell you if the transcription job is completed successfully. But again, down here at the bottom is the same way. This is how it's going to grab that file URI as we have here. And then we should have another one for job name, which is right here. And obviously, if any of those are missing, we're going to get this as the error code. And that's pretty much it. So what this is going to do, it's going to go ahead and create that transcription job, and then it's going to output that information from this job into the output bucket, so the CyberMe video bucket. All right, so at this point, we executed the command. We read the files from that disk. We uploaded to S3. We set that variable. We have some Lambda functions here that help us get that file information, pass it over to another function, and then we're going to go ahead and create a transcription job. Once that transcription job is completed and uploaded to the S3 bucket, we have a wait. And then the next one is going to be the download file. Similar note as what we saw before. The biggest difference here is that instead of it's going to be uploading, it's going to be the operation of download. The bucket name is still going to remain the same. And the biggest difference here is that now for file key, we have the JSON file name, but in this case, we wanted to add the SRT extension, and that's what that Lambda function will do. It will generate that after completing that transcription job. It will create also the SRT file, which is the subtitle file, and it'll push it into this bucket. So what this node will do, it will go ahead and download that SRT file, which is what we need in order to talk with the OpenAI chat assistant. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead, we download that file to our local machine, or in this case, it will be downloaded, but it'll also be passed through to the next node. But what we're going to do, actually no, so we're not passing it through, so we're downloading the file, and then we're going to go ahead and do read write, and then we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and read that file name, pretty straightforward, and we're going to extract the text from that file. Again, this is pretty straightforward, pretty default. Operation is extract from text file, data, and then at this point, we will have all of that data pushed up into the OpenAI message assistant. We don't have any tools or memory assigned to this. It's just a simple thing that we are at this time just going to go ahead and grab it from here once it's completed. But this is something that is going to change going forward, and I will update and provide another video when I make those changes. So again, we're going to have to provide an API key to set up the OpenAI account. We're going to use the assistant here. You have different options here. For those that are not familiar with this resource, OpenAI Playground, you go ahead and you could create a chat assistant, and I'll pull that up in just a minute, and then you could define instructions for that chat assistant, and depending on what you pass through to that chat assistant will determine what you get out of it. And in this case, we have a few jobs that we have passed, or that we instructed this assistant to perform for us. And so you're just going to go ahead and select that here, and then we get the prompt source defined below, and we have the data here, which is what we're being passed through. All right, as I mentioned, here's the OpenAI Playground. I had made another video about this as well. In this, we created a assistant, Content Assistant 2.0. I had a few other assistants, and I kind of threw it into one. This is going to be the first time that I run this with this setup here. So I said, you are the greatest and latest content assistant. Your instructions now include the combined instructions of 3 other assistants. I need you to perform all 3 jobs as instructed. And then it kind of just has some basic things in here. So this is a blog generator that I'm just kind of playing around with. As you can see on my website, it's kind of what I've been doing lately. I don't think it's the most effective, and I'm going to go adjust those blogs going forward, especially because I don't think it's very valuable, the information that it provides, but it does allow me to get content out there to get that traffic that is going to help grow that channel or grow that blog. Then we have another one. We have a assistant for YouTube, and it's going to go ahead and create an optimized description. It's not always perfect, but it at least gets some ideas flowing. It's also going to create some titles. We kind of give it a character limitation. It's not always accurate, but I emphasize the importance of SEO. I want to generate as much traffic to this video as possible. And then at the very end of that, I say you will also provide 5 optimized titles that we can use, and then create some relevant hashtags separated by spaces. And then below the hashtags, give us a Twitter post. And then the last job, for job number 3, you will have one task, create timestamps. So as you can see in my latest videos, we have timestamps, which is pretty cool. And that's because of this here. Again, this is not always perfectly accurate, but it is enough for you guys to kind of click on and then jump around. But it is enough for you guys to jump around and play around. That script that you just had seen popped up, that was something that I'm working on, automating my Joplin, my notes, getting backed up to my Pi server, my Raspberry Pi, and then it gets pushed out to S3, which is pretty cool. Maybe I'll make another video about that in the future. So we're gonna go ahead and save this. So at this point, I had deleted those files, and we're gonna go ahead and just execute this, and we'll talk about it once it's completed. All right, so it took a little bit. I had to make a few adjustments. One of them being is that the n8n had a bug. So since I was using a larger file than I was used to, as far as this video was going, it did need a wait function. And every time, anything after I think 62 seconds or 65 seconds, it would freeze. And right now we have it set at 2 minutes, because I did notice that every time that it got to this step, that the SRT file was not in the S3 bucket, so we needed a wait function. And in order to resolve that pause or the error within the wait after 62 seconds or 65 seconds, you need to update it, or update n8n. So what I did is just destroy remove the previous Docker image and then brought in the latest one, and everything's up and running. So at this point now, and then the only other adjustment that I had made, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I had the wait connected down to the S3 node down here, and that was throwing some errors. So you're going to want to go ahead and remove that if you copy this, or just take my template and you should be fine that way. So yeah, that's really it. So at this point, I'll just show you kind of what it looks like really quick at the bottom. So we went ahead and downloaded it, we read it, then we extracted from the file. So now we have the full subtitles from that transcription job. So this is the entire video. Honestly, I'm not sure why it's only showing 5 minutes. I might have picked a different video that I'm thinking of. But either way, this is the beginning and the end, just like I kind of do every other video. You can see what is going on YouTube, and then here at the very bottom, you'll see, I hope you're able to take something away. Never stop learning. It's kind of my thing that I say here in the channel. So we extracted that, and then we just threw it into the chat assistant. Like I said, that chat assistant has 3 jobs, so it's kind of broken out here. And obviously I could format it a little bit differently, but just to kind of show you, this is going to be doing the blog up here. So here's some HTML. So you have H1 tags, some paragraph tags, and this is just kind of creating a quick, it's like 4-paragraph blog, getting some keywords in there. The next job we asked about was SEO titles. And here you can see we have 1 title, 2 title, 3 title, 4 title, 5 titles. And then we asked for hashtags, and then we have 30 hashtags right here. And then we needed a Twitter post. We got a Twitter post. And then last but not least, we have the timestamps. And that's going to close out today's video. I hope I did a good job of explaining this automation. Like I said, I will upload this automation or this template. It's a JSON file into the GitHub. It'll also be on the Patreon, which is now linked down below. You do not need to donate in the Patreon. It is a $5 membership at this time, and there's not much value from it. But if you would like to support the channel, I would really appreciate it. But you could download it from GitHub, and then when you go to GitHub, all you're going to do is go ahead and input from all you're going to go ahead and do is import from file, and you will get this automation piece here. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment down below. I will do my best to answer that question at least within the next 30 to 90 days. Once it starts getting a year out, 2 years out, it's kind of hard to remember exactly if I'm not still using this automation or if anything has changed. I do plan to make some changes to this automation going forward, as I do find it very useful for me. I have been using a variation of this for probably, I don't know, 3 months now. As far as getting timestamps and stuff like that, and now I just do it into an n8n, so now I don't have to do much. The only thing I have to do is just execute this, which I'm going to change. One of the changes that I'm going to be making is that I'm going to be executing this by voice. I'm going to be trying to implement either a function through Alexa, or I'm going to be using a Telegram connection to n8n to execute these automations. So with that being said, that's going to close out today's video. I hope you were able to take something away. Next week, we're going to get a little bit into some home automation, more specifically setting up a door sensor and a window sensor. We're kind of getting our alarm system spun up, and I'm going to kind of walk you guys through that so you guys have a good understanding of that within Home Assistant. But as always, never stop learning.